Hello, hello, David Stewart here. Not to hammer the gaming stuff into the ground, but I saw another interesting bit about World of Warcraft today. They announced when the next expansion will be dropping for World of Warcraft. That will be the last day of August this year, 2016. August 30th. That means that's about 4.5 months away. And what that means is that we've had Hellfire Citadel, the new Hellfire Citadel, as the final raid tier for, it's already been out almost a year, and that's about how long it's been, I think, since I played. And after all that time, they still haven't added anything new to the game, and Legion is still going to take a long time to come out. And lots of people have given their perspective about this who are, more serious WoW channels and that kind of stuff. What it made me think about is the value proposition of WoW. And the value proposition of WoW is something that I've thought about a lot, and just the value proposition of games in general. Generally, games have a really good value to time spent entertained ratio, if you want to think of it like that. If you go see a movie, you're spending $10 for 2 hours of entertainment, if the movie's good. If you go and go to the strip club, you're spending hundreds of dollars for basically minutes of entertainment. So not all entertainment's equal, though, right? Some things are more enjoyable than others. But the amount of time that you spend entertained can be a really good quantitative measure of the value of what you're getting. And games usually deliver really good value. You could go on to Steam right now and you could probably buy Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion for $10 or $15. You could buy Morrowind for $10. You could probably buy Skyrim for $20. And for that $10 or $15, and that's not even a sale price, you could probably find it on sale for $5. You get potentially hundreds of hours of playing content that is very enjoyable while you're doing it. It's a high quality value, I think, because otherwise you probably wouldn't spend nearly that amount of time in a game. Not all games have the exact same quality part of it, but there's a lot of entertainment value. Now, if we go to World of Warcraft, the value proposition of World of Warcraft over the years has, I think, been steadily declining. That's why I think sub numbers are going down. People stop paying you $15 a month when they feel like they're not getting $15 a month worth of entertainment out of it, when they feel like they're not getting a $15 worth of quality, $15 worth of quantity of whatever however they rate quality and quantity of time spent entertained. I was a subscriber to World of Warcraft for a long time, and I did have a couple breaks in the game, but most of the time I was subscribed and playing actively, and I felt like I had things to do, at least for the first couple years I played. Conservatively, I would estimate that I have spent $1,500 on the game, probably just in subscription fees, not including buying the original game and buying each expansion, because it's $15 a month. Then you're buying an expansion for $40 or $45 or something, and then you're buying the original game for $50 or $60, and you're buying that expansion, every 2 years or however often they come out. But the $15 a month is really what gets you. So I would say I've spent $1,500 a month, or $1,500 total on it, which is a huge amount of money when I just say that, right? And people are probably going to put in the comments that it's ridiculous that I would spend $1,500 on one game, let alone a game that they may not like. And that is a valid point. However, that $1,500 spent in World of Warcraft I actually consider a really good value proposition, because that $15 per month I could have easily spent doing something else with a much lower value proposition. If you go out to eat, you're probably spending $20, and the age that I was when I played a lot of World of Warcraft, which was my mid-20s, I could easily go drop $50 at the bar on alcohol and not even blink an eye at that. And so the fact that I had something to do with my nights and my free time that I really cared about probably kept me from spending money on a lot of frivolous things. So I can't say that $1,500 was wasted in any way, because if I hadn't been playing World of Warcraft, I probably would have been doing something else that had a lower value proposition to it. That's what I really want to get at. So that $1,500, it wasn't most of it was not flushed down the toilet. A lot of Warlords of Draenor months maybe have been flushed down the toilet. But other months were not flushed down the toilet because I spent that time playing WoW instead of like going to the bar, instead of going shooting every weekend or something, instead of like going and shooting pool with somebody and like losing money or playing poker or doing whatever other things that people do on their Friday nights. And that's not to say like I never party or I never socialize outside of WoW, but I didn't have to go seek those entertainments, right? I also didn't have to buy console games. People spend, $60 a pop on console games. That's a lot of money, and it adds up. And that's, if you're buying one game a month, you're spending $60 on that value. I'm spending $15 on World of Warcraft, which is a pretty solid value proposition when you think about it. However, I do think that value proposition has been going down over the years, and I think the sub numbers really reflect that. My friend Pete on Facebook, so I'll give him credit for this. He really linked me a couple graphs that very accurately quantify this idea that we've had less content for the same amount of money over the years. And that's really where the value proposition starts to go down, is we feel like we don't have enough to do, which means we're not spending as much time in the game, or we're unsubscribing because there's not enough to do. So let me see if I can, quickly show you a couple of these graphs. So let's take a look at this one. What this one really is showing here is the number of patches and how many days are spent in those patches for each version of the game, going back to vanilla. And you notice vanilla lasted 750 days, which is the same length that Mists of Pandaria lasted. So Mists of Pandaria was actually out for the same amount of time that the original version of World of Warcraft, with those 60 levels of content and all the raids in it, was out. Let's just think about that for a minute. That means that people were doing MOP for a long time, as far as I'm concerned. You notice all the patches in vanilla. These are slightly deceptive, because not all these patches are patches of large amounts of content. They're alterations of content. They're adding little things that you may not think about as like a raid tier. The raid content that was added, or I should say, let's just think of the in-game content. The in-game content early on for Vanilla WoW was like these 10 to 15 man dungeons that they later scaled down to 5 man dungeons, including BRD, Blackrock Depths, Scholomance or Sholomance, however you want to say it, Strathholm were like the 3, and I think there's probably one more that I'm just like is blanking my mind, and I'm just not thinking. Blackrock Spire. There we go. So those were like the in-game content, and they were hard when the game first came out. They were not easy. Ubers was difficult because nobody had good gear, right? This is before the days of epics. There was like a chance of getting an epic from the last bosses of these dungeons. And then you had Molten Core, which was the first 40-man raid, and that was a huge raid. It had many bosses, like 13. I don't want to say the wrong number, but if I have to stop and think, I could probably list them. But a large number of bosses, a large number of content. It had a faction that went with it. And that's where you really were getting your first epic pieces, and it took a long time to get enough epics to go on to Blackwing Lair. So that means Blackwing Lair might have been out for a while when people were still doing Molten Core. Likewise, people were still working on Blackwing Lair when the next one was out, which was, and I'll show you another graph here real quick, which shows time spent in each of these raid tiers. So Molten Core and Onyxia, 231 days. This also includes all that other content I said, like Blackrock Spire, which is where you spent most of your time trying to get enough gear to do Molten Core and Onyxia and those sorts of encounters. Blackwing Lair says only 63 days, but most of the time people were doing Blackwing Lair rather than Zul'Gurub. Zul'Gurub was a 20-man raid and had mostly blue gear with some epics. So it was a mixture of blues and epics. They were good blues, and they were decent epics, and especially some of the ones that dropped off the car. I never got my Zinrock Destroyer of Worlds, and I farmed that instance even solo for years afterwards, and I never saw it drop once. You're just saying that everybody's got that piece of gear that they never ever got. For me, it was Zinrock Destroyer of Worlds. Never got it. But most people were probably spending that 112 days doing Blackwing Lair, not doing Zul'Gurub. Doing Zul'Gurub on the side, maybe pugging it on their off days, and then doing Blackwing Lair. Then on Courage, that's AQ 20, AQ 40. It had a 20-man and a 40-man. That was a really big content patch. Huge deal. There was a server-wide set of quests to open up the gates before you could even do this content. And that was a massive amount of of content they put, including reps. Silithus became like an actual zone. So this was a huge patch. And obviously Naxxramas was a massive patch as well. And even though there was 209 days spent in Naxxramas was hard enough. It was tuned difficult enough that I think like less than 20 guilds in the United States ever cleared it. And that's a very low number. So the original version of World of Warcraft had an intense amount of content at the level cap. And that doesn't include the 60 levels of content before that. Leveling content was the main thing in Vanilla WoW. That was where you spent a lot of time. It took you 8, 10, 12, 15, maybe even 18 days to get from 0 to 60. 18 days played. That could be months of time spent actually in the game doing stuff. And it was a really fun 15 days played, or however long it took you to get to level 60, before you were doing this raid content, before people really started to think that World of Warcraft was about raids. Before it was about raids, it was about just playing the game and doing all the stuff that there was to do. Leveling up, getting like a blue here or there, doing your Whirlwind Axe quest, all that stuff. The amount of content that the game shipped with was really substantial. The next expansion, Burning Crusade, looks like there's less stuff, but there was probably more in-game content with Burning Crusade than anything else. Yeah, it technically didn't really ship with Hyjal. Hyjal opened up a couple weeks later, or like a month later, a couple months later, if I'm not mistaken. My memory may be flawed. But you had 2 full tiers out with the game, which meant you had tier 4 and tier 5. Tier 4 was Karazhan, Gruul, and Magtheridon. That was tier 4. Then tier 5 was SSC and Tempest Keep. And then Hyjal was tier 6. So you had like 2 and then plus the 3rd tier of gear like shipping with the game. That's pretty amazing. Along with 10 levels of leveling content and a whole bunch of dungeons. They introduced the heroic dungeon system, which really gave Burning Crusade a really huge amount of in-game content, just staggering amount, plus variety in PvP. Burning Crusade really delivered a lot of value for the money, and I subbed all the way through Burning Crusade, if I remember correctly, and really enjoyed my time with it. Zulaman is listed as a patch here, but Zulaman was a 10-man, and that was one that people just did on the side. People were mostly doing Black Temple. And even though it looks like Black Temple was out for 175 days, and people were probably bored of it before Zulaman, that's not the case. It took so long to get through the Tier 4, Tier 5 content for most guilds, to clear SSC and clear Tempest Keep. Tempest Keep's not even listed on this, but Tempest Keep was way harder. Well, I don't know, it was way harder. Kel'Thuzad was certainly very hard. To clear out that tier 5 content, to even be able to go into Hyjal, because originally they had all this keying system, which was just awesome. I need to do another video just on that. But you had to clear out these 2 tier 5 instances and get these items off of those bosses before you could even enter Hyjal and start getting just 2 pieces of tier 6. So that 127 is deceptive. Most people were spending most of this time that Black Temple was out getting ready to really do Black Temple. And at some point in here, they removed the attunements and people could just kind of go into Black Temple. But it was a big ramp up into Black Temple. And by the time you got to Sunwell, most people were still trying to do Black Temple while Sunwell was out. And most guilds didn't really finish Sunwell. Sunwell was tuned like Naxxramas, the original Nax. It was very hard. And most people didn't have the gear at the time or like the personnel to really do Sunwell Plateau. But it was certainly a lot of content. Wrath of the Lich King, you start to have a step down in the amount of original content. However, you had a massive amount of world content. There still felt like there was a really good value proposition in Wrath of the Lich King. I had a great time with it. You could see that there was a whole year, 364 days spent in ICC. I feel that was actually too long in ICC, and Blizzard, if I remember correctly, basically said we're not going to let any content patch go that long. And inside of Icecrown Citadel, there was also Ruby Sanctum. That's not listed on this particular graph. Ruby Sanctum was the little encounter that you had in the Wormrust Temple. And that's the other one. No, Obsidian's listed there, yeah. So that one's not really listed, but it was in there kind of towards the end just as like a little filler bit to give people something to do. But I feel that they actually tuned the difficulty of Wrath of the Lich King in such a good way that people actually finished ICC on time. Most people, I think, got to really clear ICC and see that content. So it was tuned to get sort of everyone through the content. It was kind of the balance was Wrath of the Lich King, and I feel that afterwards it started to get a little easier. You get to Cataclysm, and you see that there's only 3 major content patches. The first one's pretty good. Bastion, Twilight, Blackwing Descent, Throne of the Four Winds. Nowhere near as big as what Burning Crusade shipped with. Nothing close. But it's still decent. Firelands I thought was pretty weak. And Dragon Soul, I think I'd quit the game by then. But Dragon Soul, I think I remember it being cool. I just didn't... I had kind of quit by then. And I didn't play MOP because I had other things going on in my life that, like living in 2 cities at once, that stopped me from doing that. And then we finally get to Warlords of Draenor, and there's 2 content patches. Warlords of Draenor actually shipped, if you actually think about this. There was Highmaul, then they released Blackrock Foundry, then they released Hellfire Citadel. So there's sort of 3 raids, not 3 tiers. Now you go back to Burning Crusade, and you have not just 3 tiers that it really like ships with, but multiple raids that consist of those tiers. Tier 5 was 2 very large raids on its own, and Tier 6 was 2 very large raids, and Tier 4 was like 3 different raids, including a 10-man raid, Karazhan, which was actually a long raid, and I think one of the best they came out with. So Warlords of Draenor, they came out with 3. And what was expected to fill in the gap, I guess, was like there's 3 different difficulty levels of it. But it's not quite the same. Like doing it again on a harder mode is not quite as fun as doing it for the first time, like finally getting to that last boss. So I think you lose a little bit of that psychic benefit there. But 435 days is a lot. So that's a huge decline in the value proposition of World of Warcraft. The amount of content you're getting for that $15 a month for your $40 or $50 expansion cost is now like really, really small. And it's small enough that I think most people are unsubscribing at this point. I do not plan on playing Legion at this point. Originally I was kind of like, yeah, I'll be that guy who maybe like buys every expansion, plays through the leveling content, and then pieces out. But I don't know if I'll do that for Legion. I'm not really keen to give them money to keep doing this. So that's, I mean, that goes back to not just the game feels different. There's less of the game. Like the game, they're giving you less and less for your money every year. And this is after they said they weren't going to do it. So like Wrath of the Lich King, they're like, we're not going to take this long to do a final raid tier again. And then Cataclysm, there was a pretty long final raid tier. Mists of Pandaria, they had over a year of the final raid tier of Siege of Orgrimmar. I didn't play during that time, but I remember my friends complaining about it. And then by the time you get to Warlords of Draenor, we're now going to have a year and a half of one raid. Not just one like tier, but just one raid. And Burning Crusade like shipped with like 6 raids. The decline in the amount of stuff they give you is insane. And it's like they keep focusing on like changing features in the game and not giving people stuff to see and do. It's really quite a bizarre thing. But I thought I might talk about that a little bit. I do think that I do think that the value proposition of most games is really high, but at a certain point, you have to stop and say, like, the value proposition in this game is really bad. The value to the amount of entertainment is really bad. So I'm going to probably be spending more time on other games that are going to give me better value or, be more in line with my life. Thanks so much for watching. Tell me what you think about the idea of value in games, like the monetary value of what you're trading, the amount of time you get, the amount of quality that you get, and some way perhaps of quantifying this. Thanks to Pete for sharing with me those fun little graphs. And I will see you next time. Please visit my website. It's dvspress.com, davidvstewart.com, and let me know what you want to see and what you want to hear. I'm always happy to deliver if I can, and I'm always happy for the feedback and the discussions. Even if you disagree with me, please let me know why, because I like to have the other side of it too. Maybe I'm forgetting about something that's important. So thanks so much, and you guys have a great day.